Hi, this is Donna from Clever Crafting. Thank you so very much for joining me today. So we are starting with a piece of cardstock, and it is the rectangle number 2 from the Metric Rectangles, which is 10 centimeters wide and 14.3 centimeters tall. And I am just popping on the honeycomb stencil that's come in this month's kit. I'm using some Distress Oxide, the mustard seed color, with my dauber, and I'm literally just going to pounce up and down on my stencil to give me a nice impression. Now, this is not going to be very even. I don't want it to be even because it's going to be a honeycomb, so a honeycomb doesn't need to be even. I like to bounce up and down too, rather than turn it round and round, spin my dauber around or use a brush, because it gives me the nice crisp edges. So I'm just finishing that little piece off there, and I'll remove it, and you can see how lovely is that. And so that is going to be our background. It takes no time at all. Moving on to our pieces that are going on the front, so our focus, we are going to have a mason jar. So this comes with the kit this month, the February 2022 card making kit, or any mason jar that you might have in your stash will work. And I am just sticking double-sided tape around the outside. I'm not being extra careful. I'm literally just sticking it around the edge. This I find is the fastest way to do this, particularly when you've got a few, little shapes. So I don't want the sticky to be showing because I am going to be sticking this on some acetate. So all I'm going to do is fold it back over on itself. So this saves me having to trim it or trying to shape it around. With the double-sided foam tape, not foam tape, with the double-sided tape, just the plain double-sided tape, this works like a charm, and it's very fast. So however, I'm not going to make you watch me do all of that. So just coming up to the end. All right, I am now going to pop that onto a piece of scrap acetate. So this acetate was just, in my scraps from my stash, and I am just, although they're just from the scraps from my stash, and I'm just going to pop that frame onto there and cut around the edges. Once again, I'm not going to make you watch all of this, but please note that what I'm doing is with my scissors, I have got them at an angle, so it's kind of half cutting a little bit underneath so you don't see any of the acetate that's hanging out around the edges of my little mason jar frame, or my little Legos tomato paste jar, which is what I think it looks like. Okay, now we're going to go with the double-sided foam tape. There is just an example of, I put my double-sided foam tape on a large piece of release paper and chop it up into little strips using my Tim Holtz cutter. Right now I'm removing both sides of my double-sided foam tape, because when you do that, you can actually make it go around corners and stuff. It's just so much easier to manipulate. So I'm going to stick this down. Now we do the same thing when we're making a shaker card. And I guess in a way we're making a shaker card here, just not in the traditional sense. So we're going to put a bug in this jar. So we could put a butterfly, but because I put the honeycomb in the background, I want to use the bees. So this is from the stamp and die set that comes in this month's kit. I'll put links for all of these things below. It is a gorgeous stamp and die set. So you can see that now I am just sticking my jar over the top of my bee, and I'm pressing down quite firmly around the outside of it. So my bee is not secured down, so he will move around inside there. Now I was planning on putting my jar lid here and realized that I forgot to put my edging around the outside. So you would normally you would do this before you stick any of your focal points on your card front. So I would use generally a piece of masking paper. This is Post-it note or mint tape, whatever that you can put around the edges to make a fine edge. I don't normally use a ruler, and I don't think I use a ruler for any of the other sides. I just did for the first one because it was very close to my little mason jar that I have already stuck on there. But you can see that I am just running my alcohol marker pen right along the edge, and it keeps it nice and straight. Now you can do this with ink and a dauber if that's what you prefer to do. I just find this nice and easy and clean. Bit of scrap paper underneath, and I just go, there you go, right across the edge. Pretty sure you don't need to see me doing that again, so I have skipped ahead and back to where I was, and just putting some glue on the lid of my little mason jar and sticking it on. So I've chosen another little bee that I'm going to put on my card, and I want to make him wiggle around like a buzzing bee. So this is just 2 scraps of printer paper. So it's just 80 GSM paper, nothing fancy, just some scraps cut into thin strips. So I'm going to say about 0.5 centimetre, but I think that they might be a little bit smaller than that, but whatever you cut, it's not going to matter. It's not even going to matter if they're the same width. And all I'm doing is, you can see that I glued them at a right angle, and I am literally just folding them backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. I used to do this as a kid for Christmas decorations, or to make little arms on little dolls and those sorts of things, paper dolls. I think I turned this over 14 times, like each one of those 7 times, so 14 times altogether. But it doesn't matter, just as big as you want it. It depends on how much you want him to move around or how flat you want to keep him. The more you want him to buzz, the more folds you do. The less you want him to buzz, the less folds you do. All right, so I glued that together for that last fold. Now I'm going to just pop a little bit of glue. Oh, and I trimmed it, of course. You saw me trimming it. Just popped a little bit of glue on one side of that. I'm going to hold it down onto the back of my little bee for a second. Then I'm going to put some more glue onto that little apparatus that I made there, and I'm going to stick that on my card. All right, all we need now is a greeting, and this is a greeting that I did up a sheet, and all of it says, "You heard you caught a bug." Particularly in this climate, this is, I believe, a very good theme to have for a card, because plenty of us are getting sick. And I'm just sticking that's just some cardboard or some packaging that I am sticking at one edge to hold it up so it is level with my little mason jar, and putting some glue. Now, I actually forgot to put the glue on the back of that cardboard section, but that's all right. I'll fix that up off camera later. Just making sure my card's around the right way, and I'm popping some glue on the back of the mat that I have created. And I'm just going to stick it on the front of the card. And we are done. Now, this card, after I had all my pieces ready, took me 19 minutes. The filming of this was actually 19 minutes. So it's not doesn't take very long to make. You can see my little bee buzzers there, the one that's on that little apparatus thing that we made. Now, my other bee seems to be stuck in his mason jar, but once that ink dries, he moves around without any problems at all. Anyway, there he is upside down in my jar. So here's some close-up photos. I hope you enjoyed this class today, and I really, really hope you learned something and want to give it a try. As I mentioned earlier, I will put links down below. If you would like to see more examples of this card, please hop over onto our Facebook page. It's called Gold Coast Crafters. I will also put a link for that below. I'd love you to subscribe and tick the like button. And until next time, I hope you stay safe and happy crafting.